Welcome to Kings of Kimuras, your one-stop podcast for everything from mats to the stars. Join us as we dive into the heart of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, explore the thrills of MMA, and groove to the beats of music. But that's not all. We're also venturing into the unknown, discussing aliens and the mysteries of the cosmos. And of course, we'll be shooting the breeze, sharing stories, and laughs along the way. Get ready for a wild ride from a universe of topics. Strap in and prepare to explore the world of BJJ, MMA, music, aliens, and more. Let's roll.
All right, guys, welcome to the Kings of Kimura podcast. This is going to be episode number 5. Welcome back. Dom was out on the last one. We had substitute Dom fill in. I hope that he did as good a job as you did. I haven't heard the episode yet, but it's actually, there was some good stuff in there. So
Nice.
So I guess let's go ahead and get into it, man, because since we've had the podcast that Who's Number One came out, and people kind of like, jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. If you wear a gi or you don't, if you wear a gi, you're good at jiu-jitsu no matter what. And I think people have this misconception of like guys just take the gi off, like as they're walking out to the mat to compete for the first time ever. And whereas I feel like that was probably the case, prior to, let's say, 2017 ADCC. But since then, there's very specialized guys training no-gi only.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also you have to remember, like, if you're a champion in one, you're going to figure out how to win in the other. But you can't. But those guys who have won those competitions know, okay, if I'm getting ready for a no-gi match, it doesn't make any sense to do any training in the gi. And vice versa. If you're going and trying to win gi worlds, you're not going to train primarily no-gi and be studying no-gi. You're going to do primarily gi. So, and a lot of these guys have been training their whole lives, too. So, obviously, they have tons of mat experience in both already before they even hit adulthood.
Yeah, and I talked to a guy that he's an ADCC ref, current ref, and I'm not talking about like an open ref. He's a world's ref. Guy's from Finland. He was saying that he noticed, right around like 2017, these guys were more specialized in no-gi. Obviously they had been like training leading up to that. But prior to that, you had guys like Marcelo that would train in the gi and, maybe take the gi off a little bit to do these major events. And in past, how often have you heard it's no-gi season?
Yeah, you hear it all the time. I mean, even gyms around this area, they'll post like, oh, it's no-gi season time, towards the end of the year, like right after gi worlds, then kicks off the quote-unquote no-gi season.
And most of those people that are preparing that way are doing gi jiu-jitsu without the gi. And that is very effective for sure. You're going to shut down a lot of people. But you and I know, like, there's so many different techniques that are developed these days and positions that if you're not training no-gi full-time and you're not, learning from instructionals, you're not competing no-gi, you're going to have a really hard time, at least towards the end of a tournament, finding a opportunity to win. You can, for sure, you can win with traditional jiu-jitsu in the early stages of like a major event like an ADCC Open. But once you get to day 2 of like trials, man, it's going to be pretty hard to win with traditional.
Absolutely. You're going to get more guys who specialize in their field. You get a lot of leg lock specialists. John Calistine comes to mind right away when I think of guys who, they make it to day 2. They do really well, but they're kind of highly specialized in one area. He's a really, really solid leg locker, but once he went up against somebody like Ethan, who is extremely well-rounded and knows 80cc rules, he really struggled a lot, So the more you do these 80cc rules tournaments, the more you take the gi off, obviously the better you're going to do overall. And I think like a lot of guys, when they transition from gi to no gi, they start to realize real quick, oh man, I don't have all these grips to work with, especially if you get guys who like working with the lapels and working with spider. That stuff just doesn't exist no-gi, so it's like a big part of their game is hindered in that way, and they just have a really tough time kind of like breaking out of that shell. But you see the guys who do end up breaking out of that shell and kind of put themselves in uncomfortable situations, obviously that's where you make the most growth.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are great in the gi, but the second that they take it off, they're almost like afraid. Like I've heard from some people, hey man, I don't understand no-gi, don't attack my feet,
Yeah, don't attack my feet. Dude, what are we doing?
Like, yeah, I mean, I train no-gi all the time, and I don't try to hurt people in training, but I think people have this mindset, or maybe they're brainwashed to think that like leg locks are so dangerous that you can't even drill it. It's almost like if you touch somebody's leg, their knee is going to explode. And I've trained with people, and you've trained with them too, that don't know anything, and you'll like put them in a submission, and then all of a sudden they'll like spiral out, which is the worst thing you could do. And what do? You just let it go, right? You don't like hold on to it and destroy the guy's leg. You let go, and then afterwards you're like, hey man, remember when you did that thing? Yeah, don't do that anymore.
Yeah, don't do that ever again, because your leg is gonna explode. Yeah, we get we've both trained with people like that who are like, don't attack my legs, or like, be careful on the legs. It's like, listen, I'm not one of those people who's going to grip and rip a sub in training. Like, we're training, we're here to get better. If I rip a sub on you, first, you'll probably just not want to train with me anymore. Second, you'll be injured, and then you can't really like go and train for a while,
Yeah, and again, I think people have been brainwashed into thinking that it's so dangerous that you can't do it. And that could be like an effort by traditional gi schools to prevent people from going cross-training in a no-gi predominantly school.
Yeah, I see a lot of people in like the comments of like some of these grappling pages, a lot of it's in Portuguese, and then I hit the translate button, and they're like, oh, this is a dangerous move to even drill. I saw like the Kyotera lock, like some guy was breaking down the Kyotera lock, and some Portuguese guys in the comments are like, oh, that's too dangerous to do in training, or you're going to hurt your training partner trying to do this. And it's like, dude, first, I'm not going to rip it, but you also have to be defensively responsible and know, okay, I'm stuck in this position. I can't move my hip. There's a lot of pressure on my foot. It's just probably more wise for me to tap than try to do something spazzy or explosive to try to get out, because that's where you get hurt.
Yeah,
it's not even the person applying the sub, it's the person who's defending, and they don't know how to be defensively responsible, so they just try something real fast and explosive, end up hurting their own ankle or knee.
And guys in the comments are the worst. I look at like some of the comments on technique videos that I put out, and it's funny that one of the top comments is always like, try that against somebody resisting. I'm literally showing a detailed breakdown about how to do a technique, and the first thing that they comment is like, try to do that against someone resisting. Like,
that's the whole reason for the details, buddy. Yeah. Because we want to do it against resisting opponents.
Yeah, it's, I'm tired of like the gi versus no gi debate. Both are jiu-jitsu. They just happen to be a little bit different, and like we talked about on the last time you were on the podcast, for sure, like the goal is to be efficient in both, but people are always going to have a preference, and your preference today doesn't mean it's always going to be your preference, next week, next year.
Wrestlers, I feel like, too, gravitate more towards no-gi just naturally. I know for myself, when I came back into jiu-jitsu, I started doing both again because I had done both previously, like when I was a yellow belt. But I gravitated more towards no-gi because I felt like my wrestling gave me an advantage. I could I could take people down, I could get on top, and I could put good pressure. But then in the gi, I would go and roll, and I would almost try to like switch up my style too much, to where I would like be pulling guard and like trying to play guard. And that's great for when you're training, but sometimes I do that in competition, and like I lost plenty of competitions in the gi just because my strategy was bad. And so it's not like, I hate the gi because I can't leg lock and I can't, do the things that I want to do. It's like, no, dude, it's just like a little bit of a different game. And if you have a bad strategy, doesn't matter what game you go into, bad strategy is going to cost you in the end.
Well, there's definitely some situations and positions in the gi where, you're protected from certain submissions.
Heel hooks is like number
50-50, right? We think of like a 50-50 position in NoGi is a pretty dangerous position if you don't know what you're doing. And in the gi, though, guys will like all the time leave their heel out there, which, if you don't know what we're talking about, we're threading a leg through and then leaving our heel exposed if your back is on the mat and a person's standing. NoGi, you don't want to do that. In the gi, it's like a common technique,
Yeah, it's like a first step for a lot of people because they kind of slip the leg inside to make space.
Right.
I was like, dude, if you try that no-gi, person's going to pull your heel up into their armpit and just completely wreck your leg.
And it's happened. We've seen it. What was it? The no-gi pans that was here a couple years ago where the guy got his leg broken. It was a
from the outside heel hook.
Yeah. Guy was from like Fight Sports, I think.
Yeah, I remember that. That was so bad, man. So the guy went double outside ashi, outside heel hook, and it broke his shin.
Two spots.
Which I've seen that before, but man, that one was so bad.
Yeah, I remember looking at the X-ray. There was like a spot near the knee that was broken, and then there was a spot like halfway up the shin bone that was snapped as well.
Of course, you get the guys in the comments that are like, see, it's so dangerous, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, dude, this guy messed up way, way, way before his leg broke. Like, the heel was exposed. He was on his hip. The guy had full pressure. Soon as you get knocked to a hip when your heel's exposed in a tournament like that, you have to go ahead and assume that the guy's going to try and break your leg. So you got to be, again, defensively responsible and go just tap, tap, tap as soon as you touch.
It was super early in the match. I think it probably like first match of the day for both of the guys, so no sweat. And that's when it can be the most dangerous. That's why it's a good idea before any match you have, get as sweaty as you can, Even if your like idea is to go in there and leg lock people, like it's good to get that warm up so that you don't go in there cold,
Absolutely. And I think if you're really that worried about your legs getting sweaty, just wear spats.
Yeah.
Wear spats if you really want to leg lock. I think it kind of like gives away your strategy a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wearing long sleeves and like spats, it's pretty obvious that you're trying to catch quick subs like heel hooks or maybe like straight arm locks or something like that. But yeah, if you're really that concerned about getting super sweaty and slick, just change up your attire, Don't go in with no rashi.
Yeah, I think that I think it should go a step further and they should like allow only certain types of material for no-gi gear because there's some guys
that is true.
There's some brands that the gear is super grippy,
Yep.
And it's an advantage in the sense of like they're able to catch more submissions, but disadvantage in the point that it's hard for them to escape.
Right.
But me personally, I think that it should be like a similar slipperiness like a regular skin,
Yeah.
And there's certain brands like I like to wear that what is it called? The I can't think of the name of it right now. The
Control.
No, it's like the black and the white spats.
North South.
Yeah, North South. And I like theirs because it's not really extra grippy, And then you look at companies like Kent Peters and that Supernatural survival gear. That stuff is extremely grippy, Right. And if you see a guy wearing that in a tournament, you can almost guarantee he's going to like try to leg lock you.
Yeah, he's going to go straight for your legs.
Yeah.
One track minded.
Yeah, me personally, I like to leg lock, but I also I value more the ability to escape the submission than the ability to maintain it with the grippiness of the spats.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, when you don't have that stuff, are your mechanics good enough to where you can actually hold people in place for long periods of time.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. Yeah, I think if you go like no spats, short shorts against another guy with that same tire, it's very difficult to hold some of those positions.
Yeah,
And-
like early in the match, it might be easier because you're both, because like skin is like a little bit sticky as well. But then once that sweat starts going, or if they got a good warm up in and they're already sweating to a certain degree,
Yeah,
and good
unless
luck
you got like
holding
a partner like Rustam
yeah,
that's like covered in hair, then it doesn't really matter how wet or dry the guy is. He's probably going to be able to hold those positions.
yeah, I'm shaving my legs next time.
At least with him, you don't have to worry about being leg locked. You know, it's like,
he's just gonna try and like wrestle you to
Yeah.
death.
man, I saw that guy in I think it was like 2019 ADCC, and he like walked to the venue by himself, and he's wearing like a camo hat, and I thought he was just some dude. You know, I'm like, man, I recognize this guy, but it wasn't until he took his shirt off and he had a sweater on underneath that I was like, oh,
Yeah. Oh, it's this
that
guy.
guy's like a Russian experiment for sure.
Yeah, he's jacked, dude. I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't seen him. I don't think he didn't compete at the last ADCC.
No,
did he?
I mean, after 2019, he got subbed pretty quick. And he's probably like in his 40s by now, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's an older guy, so
Yeah. Back to the topic on the gi versus no gi. You know, I've been pretty fortunate that, you know, I get to like do some police training. You know, obviously we have some cops train here, but like a step further of like going into the actual police academy and doing some teaching and stuff there. And I had a guy, you know, like a black belt that I respect, who I think he's like some type of law enforcement part-time. He told me that guys should be training in the gi, like police officers should train the gi. I'm like, I mean, yeah, maybe in the sense of like if you're training with other cops, you know, but then when you go out on the street, most of the time, let's say you get called to a domestic violence. I'm no expert, but I watched Cops a few times.
yeah.
There's always some dude with some jeans on and no t-shirt.
And a wife beater, and if maybe
Yeah, if you got
that.
anything on, right?
Yeah.
And good luck making grips on that. you
Yeah,
know?
dude,
And
like, what
I
are we
feel
doing?
like the gripping of the gi for that type of scenario just doesn't make sense to me, because if you've been taught, oh, I'm going to grab the guy's gi and I'm going to grab his collar and his sleeve, you know, and what are you going to do? Like pull guard and take him down that way?
Yeah.
I feel like it's more practical to teach a guy a double wrist lock or Kimura, where we're more focused on hand control and less focused on head control.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
Because the goal should be in a self-defense scenario or a, you know, hands-on situation as a police officer, get their hands and get them behind their back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that way they can't grab something and use a knife or fight you, and, you know, working takedowns off of those positions.
A lot of states too now prohibit grabbing the head or like choking in certain aspects. So it's like, well, okay, since I can't grab this guy's head, or I can't like put him in any kind of choke, like guillotine, front headlock, I can't. They can't do any of that in some states.
No. And there's even, you know, like I've gone and I've taught some stuff and I'm like, hey, can we do this? And like, nah, man, if it's close to like squeezing the neck, they can do some head and arm stuff, but they have to be very cautious on like how it appears on tape, because everything
Yeah.
that they're doing is scrutinized. You know, they're all wearing body cams, and then, you know, everywhere has a camera set up, you know, so they're always being watched.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's like you got to figure out ways to control the limbs. And I mean, grappling is, yes, you want to control the head eventually, but it all starts with the hands. You know, all of grappling starts with grips, being able to get grips and maintain grips for long periods of time. And what if the dude, you go to grab his collar and his sleeve and he just like spins out and takes his jacket off?
Yeah.
You know, like if he's got a jean jacket on, let's say, and you're trying to make like a collar and a sleeve, well, it's stopping this guy from just peeling out of those clothes, and like now you're in some trouble. Now you're just holding on to an empty jacket, and this guy's gonna sucker punch you.
Yeah, I think the only way it would be practical if you were like in a street fight with a guy that was like one of those machine gun Kelly types that's like wearing a jacket 2 sizes too small.
Yeah,
And then he can't slip his arm out of that.
Yeah,
you know?
he's
You're like,
just
oh, I'm
too
about to
stuck in
ragdoll you.
yeah.
But other than that, it really seems like impractical, honestly, as like a self-defense. There's obviously some techniques and stuff, but man, I feel like if it can't be replicated in NoGi, especially you live in Texas, how much of the year is it above 90 degrees here?
Right. Yeah.
The only months that I wear a hoodie is pretty much from like November to February. And then by March, it's already too hot.
Yeah, it's already super hot. Maybe if you live in like New York, maybe this is a little bit more viable.
Sure.
But imagine you go to grab a guy's hoodie and it just rips,
Yeah.
Like it's just not reliable as opposed to like getting control of their wrist, like getting a 2-on-1 or like going for an arm drag where you can create an angle very quickly. So if they do have a weapon or something, you're at least at a good enough angle where you're not going to get stabbed like straight on.
Mm-hmm.
You can monitor their hands, monitor where their hands are going, and then start to get to work from there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much longer the gi will be like a popular thing in here in the States, but I definitely feel like it's leading to the point of being like not as popular. There will always be those traditionalists that believe in the gi, and I think that's honestly really good for the sport. I don't want to see it go away. I want to see it stay alive. I just don't necessarily want to be the one leading the path on that.
Of course, yeah, and like not having heel hooks be available in black belt okay, you could make a case for lower belts not being able to heel hook in the gi, sure. But as a black belt, you should absolutely, I feel, be able to heel hook in the gi. That's going to open the game up so much more. You're going to see more submissions, which is exactly what we want, right? That's the whole point of jiu-jitsu is to control your partner and then eventually submit them.
And keep it exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a boring-ass match where everybody's just going 50-50, going lapel 50. They had to change the rule on that because it was getting so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Where like, now they're really scrutinizing that lapel 50-50 because it's such a stalling position.
Yeah, gi jiu-jitsu is kind of going the way that judo did, where they're like implementing so many rules because there's so many people gaming the system that eventually there's going to be so many rules that it's too complex for people to understand. It's already there. But as somebody that's like been in the sport for a long time, I've like stayed up on the rules and keep learning them. But if you're somebody day one that's coming in and you're like, here's the rules for this IBJJF tournament, you're going to be like, man, I don't understand it.
Yeah, and there's so many like subtle nuances too, especially with the out of bounds and stalling rules.
Yeah.
That needs to like change today because if you look at any other grappling art, judo, wrestling, you get punished for backing out of bounds, or if there's like a scramble and you get pushed out of bounds and the other person gets a pull, like something has to give. Like you can't just allow athletes to go out of bounds freely without anything happening. Like I see guys, even for as good as Leandro Lo was, there's plenty of matches of him just backing straight out of bounds when the person really starts to get going.
Yeah, and like waiting to pull guard or something, like as soon as they hit the outside barrier mats or something.
Yeah, because then they stop them, restart them in that guard position, and then you get to work from there. So it's like, again, you're trying to just game the rules, and that's for somebody who you're trying to get into jiu-jitsu, it's hard for me sometimes to find good gi matches to show them because it's like, well, now they're in lapel 50-50, so I'm going to just go ahead and skip ahead on this part, Whereas if I show them any ADCC match pretty much, besides the ones where you see just like a lot of trash hand fighting and like bad wrestling, but if you really watch an exciting ADCC match, like that can really bring a lot of people into jiu-jitsu. And I think a lot of people just get turned off by how slow the gi is, because people, when they watch a combat sport, they want to see the action. They want to see the excitement, That's why MMA is so popular.
Well, when we went to ADCC Worlds 2 years ago and we're standing in line, there were some guys that I was talking to. They said they started training because they had watched the 2019 ADCC, like a replay of it. They didn't even watch it live. They watched a replay and they're like, decided to start training because of that. And then the very next time that Worlds was there, they went and watched it. And that is the way that the sport is going, man. And I think the longer that people try to fight and resist against it, the further they're going to be behind the progression of the sport.
Absolutely, man. You can't neglect things like leg locks anymore. There's too many resources for leg lock defense, leg lock offense, late stage leg lock defense. Like, you have all these different resources and instructors that are showing how to properly apply leg locks in training, how to apply them in competition, how to defend them. So it's like, if you just go, all right, well, leg locks are too dangerous to do, so we're just not going to do them here. Well, all right, I guess you're not doing any ADCC Opens or any NoGi tournaments that allow these leg locks. Then.
Yeah.
You know, you're essentially relying on the rules to protect you, and I just don't agree with that. I feel like you should protect you. You know, if this guy's going to try and heel hook you, all right, great, that's fine. We have ways to defend it. Even if you get into it deep, late stage, there's still things you can do to keep yourself safe and defend.
Yeah.
So
we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back, guys.
Hi, guys. It's your favorite uncle here, Tony Trammell. I just wanted to tell you guys that we're going to be having a grand opening seminar on March 31st with Justin J. Flo Flores. If you're asking yourself, why would I be interested in going that? Well, because you probably suck at jiu-jitsu or judo or wrestling, and this is going to improve your game immensely. Make sure you click the link down below to get registered. If you don't have that link, it's corvoma.com. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, we're back. We're going to talk about this UFC Fight Pass event that's coming up on March 3rd, Sunday, March 3rd. It's got a pretty stacked card, honestly.
I got some good
I really hate when they do these and they put like UFC fighters against grapplers, because it makes for a boring match. Because most of the time, guys that are MMA fighters are not really interested in engaging in submission. You know, they're more just trying to maintain top position and win off of that. You know.
Yeah, and the thing is too, like, okay, if you're an MMA fighter and you accept a grappling match, how are you going to get salty when the person pulls guard on you? What do you expect? You expect them to stand up and just get ragdolled, especially if they have bad stand-up. Like, that makes no sense if you're actually trying to win the match.
Yeah.
You know
I think
what I
it is important, you know, for people to develop a standing game. But again, like, I think one of the best potential setups for a takedown is pulling guard and wrestling up.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like, especially if the person's a better wrestler, they're going to think wrestling setups, right? Like, if you've wrestled for a long time, you kind of understand what are the common setups, but that completely changes when the person is seated. You know, like, the hand fighting looks different, and then obviously you have the threat of you step your legs too close, now they're entangling your legs and off balancing you. So it just adds a whole nother layer to the game. And I think, like, MMA fighters, they're so reluctant to engage in the guard because they actually don't have good guard passing. And I think that's another thing that people don't really talk about too much. It's like, dude, okay, if the guy's just pulling guard on you, why don't we just work on our guard passing and actually, like, go in depth and potentially even re-attack? Because, as you know, it's not just trying to pass the guard, it's trying to attack the guard. Like, you can sneak in subs, pretty effective subs, off of guard passes, you know, like a leg drag to an inside heel hook. But if you're just constantly disengaging, you engage, you start to feel like, oh, this guy's going to, like, start to get better grips, they just immediately disengage.
Yeah.
And they're just not willing to, like, participate in that flow. And that's, I mean, in MMA, that's exactly what you want to do, right? Because you don't want to get deep into a scramble when you're in a MMA fight. You got 3 rounds, 3 5-minute rounds, and then main events, 5 5-minute rounds. So if you're getting into grappling scrambles like that, that's not really conducive for that sport.
Sure.
It's more about top pressure, control. You start to feel yourself getting behind in the grappling stage, just back away, get back to your feet, and reset. You know, don't even try to engage in these grappling scrambles.
Yeah, so one of these matches, we'll, like, cover all the matches here, but obviously Craig Jones against Lovato Jr. I think the key for Craig to win this match is going to be able to get to the back. You know, I'm not sure. Like, obviously, Lovato is a legend in the sport. Probably got some solid submission defense on leg locks, and I don't know if Craig is like, you know, we haven't seen him finishing like leg locks in a while, right? He's like more of going for upper body attacks and
and
looking
like
for the chokes and
that octopus and like trying to gain top position or get to the back. Yeah.
I think he'll have a hard time potentially getting to the top position. Let's say if he pulls guard, but once he gets there, he'll probably be pretty solid.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just think that Craig's just too well rounded. You know, it's a pretty good matchup. But I think obviously Craig probably has the advantage in the leg lock department.
Well, there's a big difference in the age too, right? And
yeah,
you know, I'm not saying that both of these guys are on the sauce, but you know, if there was a smell test, I think they'd probably both fail that smell test.
Absolutely.
I mean, Craig's pretty honest with it, but you know, Lovato has never really discussed any type of steroid use, but he did fight in Bellator, and you know, we've kind of like that's been an ongoing thing of like, hey, if you chose to fight in Bellator over UFC, like there might be something that you're kind of hiding out.
There's something in your blood.
Yeah.
And listen, your head doesn't like double in size without steroids. Like over time, like you see people who aren't on, they like start to shrink down.
Yeah.
How are you getting older and somehow getting bigger and more jacked and your hands are getting bigger, your head's getting bigger, your feet are getting bigger? There's definitely some red flags going up there.
You know,
I feel like
he had an issue too when he was fighting in Bellator for that title where he posted about it. He had a brain scan and they were showing holes in his brain, you know, and I don't know if they ever like discussed like what was causing that.
I think he might have talked about it on Joe Rogan, but
I just wonder like how much does that affect your life? You know, like
yeah, for sure.
How do you like if it's affecting your brain? You know, there's certain parts of your brain that control your motor functions, your ability to comprehend, you know, language, your ability to communicate, your ability to control your emotions. You know, what all is that affected, and is it continually degrading, or is it like it's only did this much and then it stopped?
Right. I think they like stopped it for the most part. He seems like a pretty stable guy, so I don't think he's taking too much brain damage from it. But yeah, that's a scary thing, man. Like, you know, that'd probably be it for most people. I think like definitely a career ender for most people. But Lovato's just a gamer, man. He's super competitive, and that's another thing too, is he's going to want to come in and win against Craig.
Yeah.
You know, some people I feel like go in and they just don't want to get submitted, you know, so they play a real disengagey game, but then Craig always finds a way to their legs or finds a sub somewhere.
Yeah, he definitely wants to win. You know, I feel like this is a good matchup for Craig because he always does better with guys that actually try to win matches against him instead of guys that like their whole goal is to not get tapped.
Right.
You know?
Right, exactly. And that's kind of the nature of the guard, right? Like, when you pull guard, you kind of have to, it's like kind of a gentleman's agreement. All right, like, let's go. Try to pass my guard now. Like, try to get something going. Whereas guys who don't engage in that, it's like, becomes a pretty boring match, and it's almost like a game of tag at that point. It's like trying not to get tagged and then trying to tag the person.
Yeah. We've got Nicky Rod versus Roberto Jimenez, which I think that they've already had a match, right? I feel like there was some type of like tournament.
Yeah. I this might have been a while ago. I feel like they have fought before, but I'm not exactly sure. But Roberto's a lot bigger now, for sure. If they have fought in the past, because he's pushing like 200 pounds now.
Yeah.
And as opposed to being like a 170 or a 180 pounder. I think he's a very solid 200 now.
Yeah, they fought on the Third Coast Grappling Kumite.
Oh, it was like
back
the
in
absolute
2020
tournament.
Yeah.
And I think Roberto won that one, didn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah. I think Roberto's like a pretty bad style matchup for most people because of the pace he brings and like just his ability to get to the back is so great. Like if you mess up, if you give him a glimpse of your back, he's going right for it.
And then his ability to maintain that back control too. I mean, look what he did against Roosevelt Souza, right?
Yeah.
It looked like he was done. He like got caught in armbar or something like that, and he was able to escape and then use that to take the back and then finished him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was he's kind of had Roosevelt's number. They've competed a few times, and I think every time Roberto's won by sub.
And, you know, if you beat a guy more than once normally, if you beat a guy one time, it gets in their head. But you can see it sometimes where, like that prime example of that match, once he took Roosevelt's back, he kind of like was like, oh, I'm done. You know, this is over.
Right.
Just going to go ahead and tap.
Yeah, and I feel like that's also goes to show, like, if you're not confident defensively and somebody does end up getting a extremely advantageous position, you'll just crumble mentally because you won't even have an idea of how to escape, you know. Against a high-level guy, like, sure, you might be able to escape purple and brown belts, back control, and training, but it's much different having a guy like Roberto on your back as opposed to, like, some purple belt in your gym.
And I think it's good, you know, like let's say you're talking about it's hard to escape these high-level guys, back controls or whatever position. In training, put yourself in the worst possible position you can and then work on your escapes from there. You know, if you get subbed every time, like use that each time as a learning,
Right,
you know, to be able to escape those positions. You know?
Yeah, so you don't, you know, when you get into a match, if you do get your back taken, you're not just completely mentally checked out. You know, you see that. That's what makes Taza so good as well. Like his ability to escape really bad positions. Like, I've countless times where I see him get his back taken. He goes for a leg entry, gets his back taken, but doesn't panic, works his way out, and then gets right back to his offensive cycles from there.
Yeah.
You know, same thing if you like mount him, it's fine. He has a way out. He has a game plan for those positions.
Yeah.
So.
And we got Nicholas Marigali versus Mateus Denise. And both these guys
Marigali all day, man.
fought Craig before, right?
Yeah.
Mateus won against Craig, correct?
Pretty boring match. And he didn't win till the very end. He got a takedown at the end at the ADCC final. Mateus was looking pretty good for that ADCC, but since then he's kind of like regressed a bit, I feel like. He's not competing nearly as much as some of the other guys that he's going up against, so it can be hard. Once you hit that level, you know, if you're not competing all the time, if you're not really taking training, I'm sure he takes training seriously, but last I heard he was more of a instructor and professor, you know, because Marcelo had his deal.
Taken over.
Yeah, so... you know, it's hard being a coach and then trying to be a competitor as well, you know, because there are some tournaments where you don't do, but you have your whole team going to, so you have to go and coach that, and that takes away time from some time from training potentially. So, you know, trying to balance out both, especially when you're at that level, can definitely be very difficult, as opposed to a guy like Marigali, where, yes, he is teaching, but teaching is not his primary focus. It's competing. So he's always getting to the tough rounds with guys like Gordon and Big Dan and Luke Griffith.
Yeah, his main goal is competing and being a troll online. You know,
doing a pretty good job, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think I can palate his trash talk more than I can palate Gordon's, you know.
Sometimes I can, but then sometimes it's like it's too much, man. You know, like he's kind of known as, I think one of the guys at B Team, I think coined him as being Mr. Authenticity.
Yeah.
He had that incident at the last Fight Pass where the lady that kind of gets the guys prepared to go out to the mat and compete was like trying to get him to come up, and he like, you know, went off like, you don't know who I am. And
I think she was like, he was trying to go out to like, either watch or like be in the corner or something, but they have pretty stringent rules. Like there's only like a couple people allowed in the corner. They're trying to keep it more professional, so there's not like 8 people in the corner. You know?
Yeah, sir. This is not flow grappling. You can't have the entire AOJ kids program on the mat.
Yeah, on the mat side surrounding your
last
entire
flow
mat.
grappling event, there's like 40 kids mat side. Like, what are we doing, man?
Yeah, and like so obviously UFC is trying to limit that, and he got all pissed off because the lady was like, "Nah, you can't go out there." And that's when he started going like, "Do you know who I am? This, that, and the other thing."
Yeah. Like, no, I don't, man. I don't watch jujitsu.
No, she's a UFC
Jiu-jitsu guys
worker.
forget that jujitsu is such a niche thing. You know, it's not like, yes, there's jujitsu schools everywhere, but there's a lot more people that don't train jujitsu than train jujitsu.
Absolutely, and the people who watch jujitsu are practitioners of it. Most, like, I'd say like 90% of the time plus. Whereas if you look at MMA, a lot of the people who watch MMA obviously have never trained a day in their life because they're like talking crazy on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so you can tell, all right, this person's never trained a day in their life ever. But
I think it's important too, as ambassadors for the sport, to not be rude and a jerk to people that don't know what jiu-jitsu is. You know, if every interaction that somebody has with somebody who trains jiu-jitsu or is a high-level athlete is that they're a jerk to you, that's probably going to like turn them off from either, you know, even wanting to try a class or even talking positive about it.
They probably think that grapplers, they're like, oh, they sit on this high horse and they think they're like better than everybody else. And it's like, dude, in your profession, bro, you are one of the top guys. But outside of that, you're nobody. Like, you go down the street and you go to the grocery store and you're picking out groceries, people look you in the eyes like you're just a normal person. Yeah, you might be huge like Marigali,
Sure,
but they probably think you play some kind of basketball or something. You know, how they don't know that you're a grappler. They don't know anything about you, and you don't know anything about them. So, like, to have such a high ego to where you would like cuss out a worker at a tournament.
Yeah.
I saw that even at a Submission Hunter Pro.
Mm-hmm.
This guy it was like with one of the other competitors and was like cussing out one of the guys because he wouldn't let him go back into the warm-up area. I was like, dude, you don't have a wristband for that. You're not a coach. Like, you're a spectator just like everybody else in here. Like, know your place. Like, what are you doing cussing out a worker who works here? I think he ended up getting kicked out. Like, the guy was talking to like the rest of the security there.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we been to even a local tournament like a World League, which, you know, is coming in tomorrow, and the people that work the event for security, they're not jiu-jitsu people. You know, they don't understand like that you're a high-level black belt, that you're a coach. Like, there's a procedure, man. You got to have a wristband. That's how you get through this area.
Yeah,
and if you don't have one, my job is don't allow you through. And, you know, you can't get upset at the person for doing their job. You know, just follow the procedure. Like, go get your wristband, come back. You know, I've had events before where I was supposed to coach and there was a miscommunication with the athletes and they didn't put me down as the coach. They put somebody else. And, you know, they put like 2 or 3 athletes put one coach. And where typically we try to split that up.
Right.
And there's just nothing I could do about it, you know? So you either have to buy a ticket or you got to leave, you know?
Yeah.
But it's still, you can't go back in the back and coach. I mean, it is what it is. And it's, you know, as frustrating as that is for a coach, you still, like, there's rules and regulations. And
yeah, and it's usually not even the, like, if one of the athletes were to go and talk to, like, the promoter or somebody who's running the thing and be like, hey, there's a miscommunication. I should have put him down as my coach. Is there anything you can do? You know, you don't come up and be like, oh, why are you not letting my coach in, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing, get all pissed off. It's like, dude, you made the mistake.
Yeah.
How are you going to then try to go and lash out at somebody else for your own mistake?
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if you're a high-level guy, that should be, like, inexcusable. Like, as a black belt, you have to, or even a brown belt, higher belt at all, even purple belts, you got to hold yourself to a higher standard than that. Like, you messed up, and now you're having to, like, pay for it, or you don't have a coach in your corner now because everybody put the same guy. Like, Like you said, it is what it is.
I do agree with you that you got to hold yourself to a higher standard. But if I've learned anything being involved in jiu-jitsu and martial arts is just because somebody has a black belt does not mean that they're a good person. It doesn't mean
how many black belts you see.
It doesn't mean that they have patience. It doesn't mean that they're, willing to listen and learn. They're good at jiu-jitsu, and that's about it. And that's most, I think most jiu-jitsu competitors, right? It's like they're so focused on being a good competitor that there's a lot of other things in life, man, that, make you a good person. And
yeah, absolutely. And like, what happens when all that time you spent being a competitor, what happens when being a competitor expires? Because you're only young for so long. You can only compete at such a high level for so long. Because each time you go out there, there's probably going to be younger and younger guys just as hungry as you were when you were that age, So
yeah.
It's this constant, it's like an old lion trying to compete with the young lions. Like, eventually your time's going to run out. And then if you've literally dedicated X years of your life to only being a competitor and not building up anything else, you're not going to have anything when it's all said and done. You're going to have to almost like start from scratch, which for a lot of people, they just can't do. I mean, even outside of jiu-jitsu, you look at any sport, it's like that. Even professional wrestling. Like, Ric Flair is Ric Flair all the time, and he's not like the person that he was when he went into the business. He is Ric Flair. That's who he is. Like, his government name, I don't even know his government name. I just know him as Ric Flair,
Yeah, he has a pretty wild story, though. There's like a documentary you can find online that he was adopted, but he was like he was trafficked as a child.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up getting adopted, and I forget what his last name is, but there's like a cool little documentary I think I watched on Vice or YouTube or something like that. It came out pretty recent, but that guy is intense. Yeah, 24/7.
Yeah, he's in character all the time, and he even said that he wants to die in the ring, like in a wrestling match, and so it's like that kind of just engulfed his whole life. Whereas if he started to kind of see the writing on the wall, if he would have just backed off the gas a little bit and focused on other things in his life, I think he would probably be a much happier person.
Well, he definitely has some other businesses now. I think he's like tied in with that same weed company that Mike Tyson is hooked up with.
Oh, okay, yeah, the same.
But
farm.
it's like, how much money are you making from that, man? Because at this point, it's like CBD, right? Like, how many companies are there? And like, you're making money maybe off of your following, but like outside of that, probably not too much.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
He had gone through some recent things where he was trying to stay sober, and I think he got like 30 days, and then he like went and turned his 30-day chip in to get some drink.
To get some liquor.
Yeah, and like went to the bar and turned it in. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, man. I think that you look at guys like that live that wrestling lifestyle, and not too many of them make it out the other side. Hulk Hogan is probably the extreme end of the most famous and most financially successful.
I think like Dwayne Johnson as well.
Yeah, but I mean,
there.
He is like a second generation or maybe third generation of like, we think of like the guys in the 80s that were popular, and then by the 90s they were like kind of on their way out, and Hulk Hogan is one of those guys that's kind of stayed relevant.
That just transcended all that.
Where The Rock he went late 90s and then into the 2000s, and now he's like, one of the biggest movie stars there is. But he had learned from those guys, that came up in that other era that were superstars, but superstars on a local level to a worldwide level, where when The Rock came in, his dad had wrestled and stuff before, but he was already, the WWE at that point was so huge that it's being broadcast around the world.
Right.
Whereas when I was a kid, you could still watch the like local wrestling event, the Von Erichs and stuff. Like, you didn't get like a nationwide broadcast until it was like late 80s.
Right. Right. Yeah. And Von Erichs, actually, when I was gone off the podcast, I went and snuck off and watched Iron Claw with my girlfriend, and that's such a tragic story. If you guys haven't seen it, very much recommend it. But yeah, it's a crazy story, man. It's absolutely insane. But like the promotion they were wrestling for, World Class Championship Wrestling, was based here in Texas, and even my mom and some of the other people around this area all say like, yeah, dude, we would go to the Sportatorium all the time. It was like a spectacle.
Yeah.
You know, it was like you go there and it's like a party.
Yeah.
You know? And this is obviously way before social media and technology and all that. And still tons of people would come to the Sportatorium and watch these guys wrestle.
You know, that story is like even more wild than what they put in. The director left out, I think it was like one other brother.
Yeah, he did.
Just because he was like, there was too much tragedy.
Yeah.
But after that movie came out, I don't know how I found out about this, but the two Von Erich sons that are still wrestling, you know, they're younger, like in their 30s, happen to be wrestling in Garland.
Oh,
and
okay.
I got tickets for like $25 to go watch this.
Yeah.
And I took Susan and we went and watched them wrestle. And it was pretty cool. And then their dad came out and, you know, brought them out, and they all did the Iron Claw on somebody. And it's pretty cool to like watch the movie and then go see that. And, you know, as growing up as a kid, the Von Erichs were my grandmother's favorite wrestling.
Yeah.
Deal. You know, like she used to like, you know, I go to her house on Sunday and she would have wrestling on. She was like a huge Von Erich fan. Man. Yeah, I kind of like thank her for getting me into wrestling, you know, and martial arts. Like, I don't think had I watched wrestling at a young age, I would have been interested as I am in martial arts.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, I know my cousins were kind of the ones who put me on. They put me on to pretty much everything. Pro wrestling. They took me to my first UFC when I was like 9 years old, and I just kind of like fell in love with it from there. But yeah, I always loved like with wrestling, the guys are obviously super athletic and it's more performative. It's obviously all of it's scripted, but man, you see those guys, they're giants, they're huge, they're jacked, and they're flying off the ropes. And like, if you take it for what it is and not what you want it to be, it's very entertaining. I think like a lot of people talk smack on like pro wrestling, like, oh, it's all scripted. It's like, yeah, dude, that's kind of the point.
Sure, yeah. If it wasn't scripted, it would be like, it's very dangerous as it is. But if it wasn't scripted, it would like be impossible to perform these moves. You imagine some guy like flying off the top rope and like some dude sees him coming, just step out of the way. You know, like
he just
it's
face plants.
It's kind of like it's an art form for sure.
Yeah, and it involves like there's different styles of guys who wrestle too, right? You got like the grappler style, like the catch wrestler style, and then you've got the high flyers, and then you've got just like the bruiser, like the big dudes who are just bruisers. Yeah. And like then you've got the weapons guys who like tables and chairs and all. So you get a lot of different flavors and styles. That's what you know, my brother watches wrestling now, and everybody's kind of got the same cookie cutter like personality, and because it's such a big business now, and you've got so many shareholders, that if you try to push the limits with a character and you push it too far, you're gonna lose a lot of money. You know, the stuff you could get away with in the Attitude Era with like Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H, that stuff you could get away with then, not even close. You can't get away with that.
Yeah, guys
got
to be real athletes now.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, and that's why they're recruiting so many guys like Gable Steveson, who's an actual legit Olympic gold medalist, to come and wrestle with them because they want those athletes. You know, they almost want to make it seem like it's like a real professional sport. Yeah. You know, whereas before it was kind of like, yes, these guys are professionals, they're in super good shape, but it's still a performative art. You know, it's not necessarily an athletic spectacle. Obviously some matches are, like Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. Those guys, they're super athletic and they were doing crazy things in the ring. But then you get on the other side of that, like matches where you get like the TLC matches where guys are going through tables and off ladders, and there's not exactly a lot of athleticism being shown off, but it's just like that extreme nature of it.
Yeah, you got guys like Mankind, Mick Foley, you know,
Yeah.
like having matches where he's being thrown on thumbtacks, and man, some of those are really difficult to
Crazy.
watch, man.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like if you go watch
crazy.
some of those Japanese wrestling matches, you know, it gets pretty intense.
Yeah, they're like going on a concrete. Like one of the matches that Mick Foley had in Japan, he got knocked off the side of the ring, and then he you can hear his head smack off of the concrete, and it's hard to watch. And after that, he was like, "Yeah, I finished that match, and I was super concussed, and I didn't remember what happened. Like I couldn't remember any of the other spots after that." You know, so there's obviously an extremely real danger, and the more I think the more athletic you are, and like the more you understand how to fall and stuff, you can kind of mitigate that. But they have such a rigorous schedule too that injury is inevitable. Like all these high level wrestling figures, all knee injury, shoulder injury, neck, like concussions. You know, they get banged up out there for sure.
Well, guys, that's all the time we have on the podcast for today, but we covered quite a bit. Make sure you go check out some of those old cage matches with Mick Foley. I think there's a really good one with him and The Undertaker. Highly recommending checking that out, guys. Appreciate you guys. And again, we're looking for sponsorship. Hit us up. We need some more camera equipment, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Peace.
And that's a wrap for today's Kings of Kimuras episode. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey. Remember to keep training, stay curious, and always be ready for the next adventure. Until next time, keep your guards up and your minds open.